Hello, I'm Vic Johnson. You're watching Goals to Go. This is a show about learning how to set your goals, and then we bring you the rich and famous to teach you how to achieve them. Today, we're talking about result-oriented activity. And we've got a special guest here today. He worked in corporate America for a number of years, and then he got involved in network marketing. He built an organization of 150,000 distributors doing $50 million, and he did it in 5.5 years. Barry Donalson, welcome.
Thank you very much, Vic.
It's great to have you here. Barry,
Thank you.
You take a little bit different approach, and what's interesting to me about goal setting is that one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
That people find that one person's particular approach might work for them and might not work for another person. You've got a different one. Tell me about result-oriented activity.
Well, I think everything is measurable. I think the things that you do, Vic, you have to be able to measure them. And I think a lot of times people have all different types of goals on paper and goals they've written down, but they've never achieved any of them. And I took a little different approach in that I wanted to make sure that I could see everything that I'd written down on the paper. I wanted it to manifest itself. So I started writing these things down, and I started checking them off as I started achieving them. And so then I went back to look and see exactly what I had done. I realized that I was doing activity to produce that result. So, I stopped setting goals. I started choosing results, and it started working out for me.
Okay. So give me an example of how you use that particular approach to build your organization.
Well, when I started with my company, it was 300 representatives when the kind of got started. The company was new. They were looking for somebody that could come into the organization to become an impact player. And so I sat down and said, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to devote 5 years to this project. And after 5 years, I want to have the largest organization in the company. I want to have residual income at a certain income level. I want to be the top money earner in the company, and I'm going to do these certain things to do it. So I knew that in order for me to do that, I had to sponsor the right kind of people. I had to do an X number of meetings every single week, every single night to make it happen. And then I started doing those things. And then I started looking at the results I started getting. And so, after 5 years, I look back on my achievement, and I had achieved those things, close to 1 million retail customers on the books. And I earned a 7-figure income from it. So the neat thing about what I started teaching my leaders and distributors was everything that we had to do, we had to measure it. We had to see the result, short term and long term. And we had to take the necessary steps every single day to make these things happen. Base it around our business model. Not just talking about we want a Mercedes, we want a car. There's stuff beyond that. It's great to have the Mercedes and great to have the custom suits and the cars. That comes with money. In order to generate money comes a compensation plan. You have to learn how to work. So I taught them how to work and manipulate those compensation programs in order to get the dollars to yield those particular tangible items they were looking for. And it worked out great.
Okay. So you're just basically evaluating your activity, and if it doesn't have anything to do with your result, it's an activity you stay away from.
Right. Everything is measurable. If it's not measurable, I don't do it.
Okay.
So I look at exactly what I wanted to do, and then I started taking the necessary steps to do those things.
Okay.
And then I looked to see, okay, what was the result after I took those steps?
Okay.
And if the result was what I was looking for, I kept doing it, and I increased that activity.
Okay.
If it wasn't working, I readjusted, and then I would move on.
Okay. How often did you sit down and review your activity or review your results, to decide whether or not that was an activity that was worth repeating or whether it was an activity that you needed to eliminate?
Every 90 days. Every 90 days, I would go back and evaluate where I was in the process, on the long-term process. I had a 5-year goal.
Right.
Okay, well, 5 years is 60 months or so, right? So I had to find out exactly where I was in month 3, in month 12, in month 14. In month 12, did I achieve X amount of distributors? Did I have X amount of dollars we were producing? Okay, so then we can increase that activity to get more. So when I look back on it, I could see exactly where I went. And I wrote all these things down. I logged all this information.
Okay.
And I started teaching my leaders to do the same thing.
Okay.
Because I had to have them working without me.
Okay.
And that was important. I had to be able to implant the information to them, give them the system in which to work, and know they would work the system when I wasn't there.
Okay.
And it even works to this day.
Okay. So you created a real simple system that you used yourself, and then you went out and taught some other people to use that system.
Right.
It duplicated itself. Now, how do you handle, you've obviously built an organization of 150,000 people. Now you're into training and coaching and teaching. You've obviously worked with a lot of people.
Sure.
In your industry, it's common for someone to get in your industry with the idea that they're going to make $50,000
right.
in the first 90 days or the first year,
right.
and they've never made more than $3,000 a year in their entire life. How do you deal with that? How do you get that person structured? How do you get that person headed in a direction where they can use your method to get to $50,000?
Well, the thing about it, Victor, is this. I wanted to bring realization to the industry if they were working with me. I wanted to make sure they understood that this was a 5-year project we're working on. And we were going to go out there, and we were going to open up new markets. We were going to work those markets and work the people to get them involved, to get what we're looking for. So, for some people, when they come, I want to make $100,000 in 2 weeks. Well, realistically, that's not possible. But $1,200 is possible. $3,000 is possible. See, I didn't know the difference. I didn't feel the difference between $25,000 a month and $20,000 a month. I didn't feel any different. But I felt different when I went from $0 to $3,000. I felt that impact.
Right.
So I started teaching people to understand exactly, let's talk about making $500 first. Okay, let's see if we can do that. And then let's take that to $2,000. Let's take that to $5,000. Because each income level dictates different activity. You got to do more for $50,000 a month than you do for $3,000 a month.
Okay.
You may have to do more meetings. You may have to do more conferences, more prospecting. Whatever that is what we're going to have to do in order to increase that dollar amount. So I focused them on that first. I try to let people understand fully and upfront that we have long-term goals and have short-term steps in which to make those things happen, and we must measure them.
Okay. And let's continue on with the measurability because, frankly, I find that a lot of people fail at goal setting because they've adopted goals that aren't measurable.
Right.
So how far do you take that? I mean, how detailed do you take that, both in the measurement, but in the recording of it initially? And I know you said you kept a log. You logged it all. Tell me a little bit more about the measurability part of it, because that is an important part of the goal process. Well,
when I sat down with a person and we talked about what they wanted and how they were going to get there, you started hearing all these different types of things. You started hearing, they want they want to help mankind. They want to save the human race. They want to do all these different things. And, and I sat down with them and said, okay, how realistic is that for you right now? If you can't pay your Sears bill on time, how are you going to save the human race?
Right.
So I started focusing them on what they needed to do right now to get what they were looking for right now. And that may start with paying their Sears bill off. It could start with, getting out of credit card debt. It could start with some people wanting to put their kid in private school. Let's start with that.
Right.
Okay. Let's get the amount of income to do that. Then I would take that information and I would apply that to our compensation program. Okay. And by applying it to our compensation program, that told us what we needed to do to generate those dollars.
Okay.
And once we did those things, and then I started saying, wow, I just made $500 this week.
Right.
Wow. And then looking at the month, I just made $3,000 this month in total income.
Right.
Yes, you did.
Right.
Let's take that to $6,000, which means we got to double this activity.
Right.
Made it very simple.
Right. Well, what happens, for instance, let's say one of our activities is to make 20 phone calls a day.
Sure.
Would that be a reasonable number, or I guess it would depend on what kind of result I was looking for, huh?
Yeah, you can make 20 phone calls and not get anything out of it. The goal is when you make the phone call, what we want to do. Do we want to enroll the distributor? Do we want to pique interest? What do we want to do with those phone calls? And I narrowed it all down to that. Even to this day, I teach them, when you pick up the phone, what are you picking up that phone to do?
Okay.
Especially if you're talking to family members or friends, the things that people tell you to stay away from. There's nothing wrong with talking to those people. Those people, they need financial reassurance too.
Right.
But when you pick up the phone and you start talking about stuff that have nothing to do with the business, then you're wasting time.
Right.
If you start sitting and talking about things that's going to have to do with you, when you get off the phone, what result that you got, now you're starting to produce the activity that you need. And that's measurable.
So you've got an activity laid out. It's an activity you're supposed to do. Something that I encounter a lot, again, when I'm working with people and coaching people, is a day will go by, 2 days will go by, 3 days will go by, and more, where the activity didn't take place. For whatever reason, life got in the way, discouragement, whatever, and that activity didn't. What are you teaching now? If I've gone 4 days, I've gone 5 days, I haven't done my measurable activity.
Right.
Obviously that's got to have an impact on my result. So what are you doing now to correct me? How am I getting back And what's my medicine, so to speak, my prescription to make sure now that I get back on Barry's results-oriented activity?
Well, first of all, did you really want what you said you wanted?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Did you really, a lot of times what happens with people, Vic, is that the reason they decide they want to do the business is the reason that they're not doing the business.
Okay.
You know what I mean by that?
I'd love to hear that explanation.
So,
sure.
Someone may say, I'm doing the business because of my children.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm not making my phone calls because of my children.
Okay.
I'm doing the business because I want to get out of this job that's driving me crazy. Well, I'm not making my phone calls because I got to work.
Okay.
So and all those become excuses for them not wanting to achieve what they set out to achieve.
Okay.
I heard someone say, commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after feeling what you said it has left you.
Okay.
So, I started, okay, you said to me that you want to earn $500 this week. You haven't made the phone calls.
Right.
So in order for you to continue to work with me, we have to make those phone calls. Is there a reason why you didn't make those phone calls? Did you have phone reluctance? If you had phone reluctance, we can fix that. If you're watching reruns of Friends, then I have to move on to do something else.
Right. How would you fix phone reluctance, for instance? If I was really someone eager to do the activity, but for whatever reason, what would be something I could do?
Well, in our business we have scripts and those type of things, but the main thing people have phone reluctance is because they're just scared. They're just scared to pick up the phone.
Okay.
And when I got started with a lot of people early on, I sat down with them. I let them know. Somebody will say no, that's okay. But when someone says yes, what are you going to do? Because that's what we're looking for.
Sure.
We're looking for people to want to do what we do.
Right.
And so if you're comfortable with that piece of the business, no matter what business that you're in, if you're comfortable with finding the people to do either what you can't do or doing what you want them to do or doing what we do, then you're fine with rejection.
Right.
Because it's all a part of life. It's all a part of what we do. That's just the way it is.
Right.
And it works out. And a lot of times when a lot of people get over that initial fear, then they can move on to the next step once they get over that initial fear because they realize, hey, that didn't feel too bad.
Right.
I'm still living.
Right.
Person said no, I'm still breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just move on and let's find someone who wants to do what we do and it makes life a lot easier.
Fantastic. Well, I know that you've grown a huge organization,
Sure.
so obviously you developed some skills in that area. But then you decided to go out and start your own training and development company that you had no experience in.
Right.
You didn't know anything about it.
Right.
What'd you do?
I found the people who had the knowledge that I was looking for, and I followed a process to shorten my learning curve.
Okay.
And one of the most things that was important for me, Vic, was I found the people who I could collaborate with, who could show me exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I was serious about that. I didn't waste their time. When I remember talking to a guy when I wanted to develop my first CD, what I needed to do to make it sound correctly. Who do I need to find to make it sound correctly? He told me some steps I needed to take. Well, I started taking those steps. And within 6 months, I had 12 CDs. Within a year, I had 17 DVDs, 24 CDs, and a book.
Okay.
And we're marketing now in 3 different countries in less than 24 months.
Okay.
And I just continued to follow that process, And the one thing I found, especially in the training business, is that your relationships is more important than anything in this business because the people that you decide to work with can open doors for you, and then you open doors for other people. And it works out really well, especially if you got some fantastic content that people want to listen to.
Okay.
I'm not a motivational person. I'm not a motivational speaker. That's not what I do. I just found a process and a niche of teaching people to do exactly what they want to do in my chosen field of endeavor.
Okay.
And I found an audience of people who wanted to listen.
Okay. Well, and it sounds like in talking with you, because you seem pretty cut and dried, you seem this is it. This is what you said you wanted. This is what we knew we had to do. Now, you didn't do it. Do you really want it? And let's determine that before we move on.
Right.
So you're phenomenal in your accountability.
Thank you.
Okay. So explain to me now, how do you teach accountability how do you teach a person to be accountable to themselves? I mean, obviously, as part of your training and coaching, you're using that tough love and you're holding them accountable. But how do you teach a person to hold themselves accountable?
Well, I call it hitting them with a velvet hammer.
Okay.
The thing about it is that accountable is important. And what I would have, I would have conference calls and I would have accountability calls and with my leaders and people that were working closely with me. The fact of the matter is, Vic, you know as well as I know, you can't work with everybody. You have to work with people who are serious about their endeavors. And then a lot of people who are serious about their endeavors, they're looking for guidance. They're looking for somebody to take them to a location that they can't take themselves.
Right.
Okay. And so, and once they figure out they have that guidance, then I can pretty much put them on course they need to go on because I'm on that same course.
Right.
And it makes it very easy when you're working with people who are on that same course because our conversations are different. You know, we're not questioning what we're doing. Right. You know, if we're going to go to Houston and open up Houston, we're not questioning, is that going to happen? What we're doing, we're talking about the strategies to make it happen. We're talking about the funds it's going to take to open it up. We're talking about where we're going to strategically place our offices to make it happen. So it makes the process a lot easier when a person is accountable. Now, that takes time. That takes time for a person to develop those type of skills. And you know, I'm not necessarily the chief of doing that. I may point them in the right direction that can help them achieve that personal guidance. And then once they have their belief system in themselves, then I can teach them to build a business. Because if people believe in themselves, then they'll build the business. They'll build themselves, they'll build the business. They believe in themselves, they'll build the business.
You were saying as we started out here that you got involved with a company that was fairly new.
Yeah.
What kind of result? I mean, realistically, when you saw the opportunity, you were in corporate America. I'm assuming you were tired of corporate America.
Yes.
You were looking for something for yourself.
Yeah.
And you said this might be it, and you took that step. What kind of result did you really anticipate? I mean, what did you see then as the result that you could achieve?
I saw that if that company could withstand the type of production I was committed to producing, then we would have the results that we're all looking for. Because when I saw the company, I saw it as an opportunity for me to step in and do exactly what I wanted to do. Okay. I saw a company that it was young enough where it was ready for national expansion. Okay. And it was old enough that it had gone through some of the ups and downs that new companies go through. And they were just looking for somebody to step in there who was serious about building. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. I remember leaving the conference I was at. I was leaving the conference. I need you to ship a certain amount of supplies to my house, and then I will call you in a few days. I remember telling the owner that. And I remember calling him, and at that time I'd put 31 people in the business by the time that product got to my house, and by the time that phone call had happened, I'd already put 31 people in the business, and we had started building from there.
Okay.
I started my activity right away. When I left that conference on my way home on the airplane, I was writing down the people I wanted to communicate with and let them know exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
I took all the hype, in my trainings, I take all the hype and fluff out of the industry, and I just focus in on what we need to do, no matter what company that you're with, right, to get the result that you were looking for. Right. And the negativity and things that surrounds all that didn't even bother me. That didn't get in my way. That's just part of it.
And I'd like to explore that because, frankly, I teach that you'll never attempt or never seriously give 100% effort toward anything you don't believe you can do.
Right.
You're not going to set yourself up for failure. You're not going to set your self-esteem up to be wounded or whatever. So you go out there and you see this opportunity and immediately you start taking action. Where did the belief come from? What did you, how did you develop the belief that could carry you to go to that next step? Because again, if a person gets involved in your industry or in any industry really, and they don't have that belief, they're never going to commit themselves fully to it until they do. So how did you do it, and then how do you teach people to create the kind of belief they've got to have to take massive action like you did?
Well, the fact of the matter is, in our business, in my line of work, it's a volunteer business. Okay, and for me, I'm gonna speak for myself first. For me, I hit something called threshold, and threshold was when I said to myself, "Okay, I've had it. I've had it going into this office. I've had it." My positions being passed up because of politics and nepotism. I've had it. No more. I had hit that point. Okay. So I have to do something to change this process. Okay. And that's when I found the industry that I found. And what I found for a lot of my leaders and the people that I taught and coach and work with, even today, they've gotten to the point where they have reached threshold, whether that's a financial situation, whether it's a job situation. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of the people that I had worked with, they weren't broke. They didn't live in poverty. These people had six-figure incomes, and some more doctors and lawyers. But they had reached a point where they were giving up so much of their time for the money, or they could not make the choices. They were looking for a change.
Right.
And I saw that problem, and I solved it with my opportunity.
Okay.
And that worked for me. And I found that most people who get involved, whether it's a franchise or whether it's networking, whatever it is, they've gone through a change window. And every 6 months, we go through a change window. Something's different in our lives. It could be, wow, I have a kid now. I want to put him in private school. Wow.
Right.
I need a new car. My car is broken down. Or wow, I just got passed over for the 5th time.
Right.
And they go through that change window, and then they make that decision that they want to take place. And I got good at finding those type of people.
Right.
I wanted to find people who understood business.
Right.
They understood exactly what it was going to take. I don't have to convince someone that we can make $10,000 a month at this. You could see it in the compensation plan. Once I got good at explaining that, it made my job a lot easier. I just gave people direction.
So it wasn't so much you cultivating your belief, but it started from a pressure that you were going to change something even if it was wrong. You were just up to the point of change. You were just ready to do something.
Absolutely.
Almost desperate, like some of us get sometimes before we do change.
Yeah. Sometimes we got to go through that shock therapy for it to happen. Yeah. And for me, that's how it happened. I had a fantastic job. The problem was the office politics and the people that I dealt with.
Right.
And I felt there was no more. I didn't have to deal with that. I felt underemployed.
Okay. Well, let me take that a step farther, because I know you started off, you took massive action, you had early success. A lot of times that momentum gives us more belief. That momentum takes us farther, and more massive action creates more results, et cetera. Did you ever reach a point where it was discouraging? Did you ever reach a wall? Did you ever run into a wall anytime in that process where the wheels just fell off and you just walked around, you went in the closet for a while to figure out whether it was all worth it or not?
Well, I never reached a point where, only in my early years before I got into personal development.
Okay.
Once I got into personal development, I started developing myself. I never allowed myself to get to the point where I felt like there was just no way possible I could make this happen.
Okay.
Even to this day, even when there's a situation I have to change, I take action to change it.
Okay.
I try not to let it dampen my spirits, if you will, because it doesn't do me any good to be in a funk.
Okay.
I have to continue to move myself forward.
Okay.
So what I try to do, if you ever have an opportunity to come to my home, you'll see that I have a library. That library is full of resource tools. I believe in resource tools.
Okay.
And whatever it is that I need, whatever pick-me-up I need, whether it's, a financial pick-me-up, or I made a wrong investment, or maybe a relationship, or maybe it's, some internal motivation I need, or whatever, or external motivation I need, I have the resource tool that I can pull from. And I do a lot of that soul searching by myself. I don't, when I'm in there listening to a tape or a CD or reading a book, I don't have anyone around me to take away that process of that thought, because I don't want anything to disorientate me from which way I'm trying to go.
Right.
And so, I'm a person who really believe in resource tools, because, you can't get, these top people in your house to train and teach you. You have to be able to take their information and listen to it, and that's what I do.
So when it comes to discouragement, if I hear you correctly, you're not really, how did you do it? And then how do you teach people to create the kind of belief they've got to have to take massive action like you did?
Well, the fact of the matter is, in our business, in my line of work, it's a volunteer business. Okay, and for me, I'm gonna speak for myself first. For me, I hit something called threshold, and threshold was when I said to myself, "Okay, I've had it. I've had it going into this office. I've had it. My positions being passed up because of politics and nepotism. I've had it. No more. I had hit that point." Okay, so I have to do something to change this process. Okay, and that's when I found the industry that I found. And what I found for a lot of my leaders and the people that I taught and coach and work with, even today, they've gotten to the point where they have reached threshold, whether that's a financial situation, whether it's a job situation. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of the people that I had worked with, they weren't broke. They didn't live in poverty. These people had six-figure incomes, some more doctors and lawyers. But they had reached a point where they were giving up so much of their time for the money, or they could not make the choices. They were looking for a change.
Right.
And I saw that problem, and I solved it with my opportunity.
Okay.
I don't care if they're in the jewelry business. We teach them how to let people know they're in business, because if you're in business and no one knows you're in business, then you're not in business. Okay, so we help people get put in business. The second day is financial piece. And the financial pieces, I have 5 of some of the people that I selected, some of the best financiers. We teach people when you start making money, this is what you do with it so you don't lose it. You know, this is how you properly invest, or this is how you can have a 401k without having a company, because a lot of people think that, or you can have benefits. So I bring the people in to teach them how to make sure, if they're going to be entrepreneurs, how to manage that money. And then the third day is personal development mastery. And personal development mastery is where I bring in some of the top personal development tools. So we start working on the inside of you to teach you how to take the action, to help you get over the hurdles and the pitfalls and the things that's going to happen. And then I put all that together in a DVD series where we take the information that a person can have it on demand. And
I know you've developed some other tools in addition to that, and they're available at MMG Management.
MMGmarketing.com.
Excuse me, MMGmarketing.com.
Yeah.
Barry, you sound like a person who you've used a lot of personal development tools and resources. Tell me what new habits you created in your life to reach the level of success that you've reached.
It's all result-oriented. What we're talking about is simply result-oriented activity. Everything I do to this day, even when I said with my staff this morning, today, this is what I plan to do today. This is what we're going to achieve today. And if we don't, we're going to debrief on why we didn't achieve this today. So that way we know this morning before we got started what we want to do all day long to get the result that we were looking for. You know, so that way we're taking the necessary steps. We're saying the necessary things. We're providing the necessary tools. We're giving, we're doing the things and giving people an opportunity to get a chance to get this information that they need. And so at the end of the day, we'll measure this. We'll see where we are. If we fell short, we find out how we fell short. We'll talk about it. Then the next day we'll move forward, and we continue to take those steps.
And if you're on an island alone, what 5 books would you hope to have with you?
What 5 books? Number 1 would be Think and Grow Rich for sure. Number 2 would be The Science of Personal Achievement.
Okay.
Number 3 would be Conversations on Success. 4 would be Susie Orman's, one of Susie Orman's books on financial matters.
Okay.
And the 5th one would be Parenting by Bill Cosby.
Oh, okay. And if you had to take one DVD with you, what DVD would you hope to have with you?
Success Mastery.
Success Mastery.
Absolutely.
It's a great program.
It's a fantastic program.
Well, Barry, I want to thank you for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you. You've walked the talk. You've gone out there and you've done it. You've given a lot of people a lot of hope. Good luck in your training and development business.
Thank you
We
very
hope
much.
you'll do well with that. Join us next time with How to Conquer Fear and Achieve Any Goal. We want to bring you the very best that we can, teaching you how to reach goals. We're going to talk about Conquer Fear. We're going to have Lisa Jimenez, who is a phenomenal person with Conquer Fear. So now that you've got goals, it's time to go. See you next time.